All right, welcome. This is Mrs. Agapov, and this is Red Pen Check for Quiz 4. All right, let's look at number 1. We have negative 2x plus 3x plus 10 equals x minus 1 plus 11. All right, first off, we have some like terms that we can combine right here. So negative 2x plus 3x is going to give me a positive 1x, and bring everything down. So I get x, and then we start off at negative 1 on the number line, and we're adding 11, so we're getting less negative. We're going to end up at plus 10. All right. Some of you may see right here that these are exactly the same on either side, so that tells us that we have a infinite number of solutions. We can continue with that by getting x by itself by subtracting 10 on both sides, and we get x equals x, which is a true statement. And if we wanted to check, for my students, I told them to make x 0 for their check for infinite and 0. All right, so I'm going to rewrite this 2, 0 plus 3 times 0 plus 10, and so on. So riveting. Sorry, that's a minus sign right there. All right, anything times 0 is 0, so we end up with 10 equals, got 0 minus that negative 1 plus 11, and we showed that up here that that is 10. So we end up with 10 equals 10, which is a true statement. Okay, moving on to number 2. We got some parentheses in here, and we can't combine anything in there, so we have to distribute. We got 4 times x and 4 times a minus 3. 4 times x is 4x. 4 times a minus 3 is a negative 12. Then we bring everything else down. Then I'm going to move my integers to one side, and then I'm going to move my variables to one side. So I'm going to add 12 to both sides first. So I end up with 4x equals 2x plus 24. Move my 2 x's over, and then I end up with 2x equals 24. Divide by 2, and we end up with x equals 12. All right, and if we get x equals something, that means that there is exactly one solution to make the mathematical sentence true. And for our check, all we got to do is substitute 12 for every x that we see in here. So we have 4 times 12 minus 3 equals 2 times 12 plus 12 is 36. And 24 plus 12 is 36. And it checks out. All right, number 3. We have 2 minus 1 times 6x minus 1 equals 2 minus 6x minus 1. All right, so I'm going to distribute this minus 1 over. So I end up with 2 minus, negative times a positive is always a negative, times 6x. A negative times a negative is a positive. We get plus 1 equals 2 minus 6x minus 1. All right, many of you may have already noticed that this is an impossible statement. So that means that there are 0 solutions for x. The reason why it's impossible is we have a, let's bring some colors in here. We have a 2 here, and we have a 2 here. We have a minus 6 here, minus 6x to be exact, minus 6x here. And then we end up with having a plus 1 and then a minus 1. That doesn't work, because for any x value, this whole thing is going to be the exact same thing on either side of the equal sign. But if we add 1, we're going to get one number, and if we subtract 1, we get a different number. So these two things are not equal. So if we want to check this, I told my students to do x equals 0. So we end up with 2 minus 1 times 6 times 0 minus 1 equals 2 minus 6 times 0 minus 1. Okay, so we're going to work this out. Negative 1 times negative 1 is going to be a positive 1. So we end up with 2 plus 1 equals 2 minus 1. Now we can definitely see that this is a much easier thing to see that these two things do not equal each other. If you wanted to continue on, we'd minus, and we end up with 2, or 1 equals minus 1. And that's not a true statement. That can't happen. All right. Moving on to number 4, to distribute that negative 2 over, and then distribute that 3. So we end up with negative 2x plus 2 plus 4x equals a 6x minus 6. All right, we want to get all of our integers and all of our x's to one side. But hold on, we got some x's here and some x's here. I got negative 2 plus 4x, so we're going to end up with 2x's plus 2 equals 6x minus 6. Yeah. Move all my integers to one side, so subtract, get 2x equals 6x. And we start off at negative 6, and we are minusing 2 more from it, so we end up at minus 8. Okay, and I'm going to move this over, and we end up at a negative 4 equals negative 8. X alone, make 1 by dividing. Okay, a negative divided by a negative is always a positive, so we end up with x equals 2. Okay, if x equals something, that means that we have one solution. Okay, and to check this, we just plug in that value. And when you simplify and you solve everything, you end up with 6 equals 6, which is a true statement. On your quiz, you didn't have points given to you, so let's fill that in now. Look at my change in y. So your change in y over your change in x. Okay. I'm just setting myself up. This is going to be my equivalent ratio setup. So I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3. I got 3 as my change in y, so I'm going to write that over here. And then I am going to go over 1, 2, 3 over as my change in x. All right. And we can either multiply or divide. I'm going to divide. I'm going to divide by 3. And I'm going to divide by 3. And that's going to give me 1 over 1. Okay. To show this as a sloped triangle, we just need to go a little bit easier to see. We can see we go up by 1 in our y value, and then we go over 1 in our x value. So our equivalent ratio is 1 over 1, and then our equation will be y equals, I'm going to take my simplest ratio, y over 1x, or you could write y equals 1x. That works too. All right, focusing on number 2. All right, points that were given, there's 0 and then this one over here. So my change in y over my change in x. So my change in y right here, all I have to do is go up 1, and then I'm going to move over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 until I hit that other dot. So my change in y is 1. My change in x is 5. And because this is the simplest form, we can't reduce that at all. I'm going to multiply this time. I'm going to multiply by 2 because that's just easier. So 2 times 1 is 2, and then 2 times 5 is 10. Okay. And to show this on your graph, you'd come over here and you'd go up 2. So go up 2, 1, 2, and then you'll go over 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this line just overlaps with our original triangle that we had. All right, so our equivalent ratio, we can do 1/5 equals 2/10. And then our equation, we want to take that simplest ratio and we've got y equals 1/5 x. All right, number 3. We have to give you those points. We got, okay, change in y. We go up 1, 2, 3. So we're changing y as 3. And then we have to move over to the left 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're moving in a negative direction on the x-axis, so our change in x is a -5. Okay, and to make our equivalent ratio here, we're going to multiply by 2, because it's just easier, like we always do. So 2 times 3 is 6. -5 times 2 is a -10. All right. So our equivalent ratio is 3/5 -3/5 equals 6 -10ths. All right. And our equation is y equals -3/5 x. All right, number 4. And y is 4, and our change in x is -1. Proportional relationship, we're just going to multiply by 2. Multiply by 2. Okay. And on the top we end up with an 8, and on the bottom we end up with a -2. Our equivalent ratios here is 4 minus 1 equals 8 minus 2. Okay. And our equation ends up being y equals 4 over -1x. Or, if you want to get real fancy, you can do y equals -4x. This is it, everybody. If you have any questions, make sure that you write them down and you ask your instructor. There is always retakes on these. See you later. Have a great day.